Hey everyone, welcome back to Harp and Guitar, People and Music, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Whiskey's Blues Gumbo. You know what we do here. This is the show where we take weird or interesting or strange sounding blues words or phrases and lyrics. We try to figure out what the heck they're talking about. And it's been a while. So I apologize for that. It's been a few months here since we've discussed some wacky blues words and terms, but certainly glad to be back. And funny enough, this one actually comes by way of a subscriber, so thank you very much. This one comes from Jim McIntosh. And Jim wanted me to discuss a little bit about the meaning of and the origins of the term cutting contest. So yeah, very excellent suggestion. So thank you very much, Jim. And I'm sure we've all heard the term cutting contests when it comes to guitar players, for example. And basically that is the origin of how that meaning or that word came to apply to the blues, especially. Although not exclusively. Rock and roll guitarists have been engaging in these cutting contests for decades and decades and decades, since the very beginning of rock and roll. But as we all know, the blues had a baby and they named it rock and roll, as Muddy Waters once said. So if you rewind even further back from rock and roll and get to these great blues guitarists, electric and acoustic, it didn't matter. They were doing the same thing, and that's basically how it trickled down into popular music and rock and roll. But basically it was sort of a one-upmanship competition. Sometimes it was an organized competition put on by a blues club owner, like a contest or like a talent show type of idea. Sometimes it was put on by whoever owned a juke joint, some country juke joint, and they would organize it. But more often than not, it was just sort of something that sort of came up naturally amongst blues guitar players, one against the other. And the term cutting contest basically comes from, it started off as you would cut them off. So two of you would be on, let's say, on the stage or in front of a crowd in a club or juke joint, and somebody would play a couple of licks, and you would sort of pick up where they left off, but one-up them. So it was, a constant one-upmanship type thing. But the cutting part came where if somebody was playing something really good, and you figured they were giving it their best, they were giving you their A game, and you knew you could do better, you could just jump right in and cut them right off and just take over and eventually humiliate them right off the stage. Now eventually, of course, as the machismo of these guitar slingers evolved and as guitars became electrified through basically starting in the late 30s, but most especially in the 40s and 50s, these cutting contests got to be a lot brasher and ballsier and a lot louder. And of course, as the music itself, specifically here talking about the blues, as that music sort of evolved and changed and became more solidified as a true unique musical genre, these cutting contests became more and more aggressive. The guitar players were more aggressive, and it was a way to show off your skills and, like I said, sort of one up the competition. And it was a way to get your name out there. Now, sometimes it would get so aggressive that it wasn't just that you would cut them off, but you would cut them out, meaning you humiliated them so badly that they more than likely would not, at the very least, challenge you or accept a challenge from you in a cutting contest ever again. And at the worst, would probably never show up in that joint ever again either. They'd find some other blues club or juke joint to go to because they just didn't want to show their face in this place after being so shamefully embarrassed, right? So it goes from cutting them off to completely cutting them up. And then it gets even more macho and more aggressive, especially in Chicago with the electric blues of the 50s and 60s. The terminology started to evolve from not just a cutting contest to head cutting contests. And that term right there really is a perfect example to illustrate the aggressiveness and the machismo of these guitar slingers. And I call them guitar slingers because they were basically like the Wild West gunslingers of their day. But instead of shooting guys and filling them full of lead, they were cutting them off or completely cutting them out. And like I said, it got to be so aggressive that the term head cutting contest, where they cut their head. Yo, how'd you do against Jimmy the other night in the club? I heard you really let him have it. Oh, yes, son. I cut his head clean off. Clean off. So, so much to the point that Muddy Waters Electric Blues Band, I think at the time they were known as the Muddy Waters Band or the Muddy Waters Chicago Band or something like that. Muddy Waters Blues Band. This would have been around 56, 57-ish, somewhere in there. His band were known as the Headhunters. They were cutting heads so badly that people got the idea that these guys were actually going around looking to pick fights, looking for heads to cut. And there's actually a scene in that movie Cadillac Records that came out a few years ago where Muddy Waters and his band walk into a blues club while another band is on the stage playing their paid gig. They were paid to play and perform that night. And Muddy and his band come over and just take over the stage and completely not only cut them out, cut them off, they cut their heads off. These guys leave, never come back, and Muddy and his band continue playing out the rest of the set, basically the rest of the night. And that lineup consisted of Muddy on lead vocals, lead guitar, Jimmy Rogers on second guitar or rhythm guitar. For quite a while, Little Walter on electric blues harmonica, what we call blues harp. On drums would have been, Elgin Evans, maybe, I want to say. And on bass, for the most part, was Bill Crawford. And then after that, he switched. Who was the electric bass player? When they went electric bass, he switched bass players. The name escapes me, I'm sorry. But yeah, this five-piece band with Muddy as the band leader became known as the Headhunters because they were just cutting everybody off, cutting everybody out, cutting everybody's heads off. So there you go. That's it. Another edition of Whiskey's Blues Gumbo here at Harp and Guitar. And, cutting contests and head cutting and head hunter and all of that. So thanks again to Jim McIntosh for suggesting this one. And thanks to all of you for tuning in, joining us. If you haven't already, please do all the YouTube stuffs down below. And until next time, thanks a lot. Take care. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.